Whoa. Whoa, 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 whoa. Oh my god. Whoa. I was not I was not prepared for this. Hello everybody. Golly. One sec. I need to turn down the audio. Hello. Well, for myself. I guess I didn't need to turn it down for you guys. Hello. Hello, hello. So, as the name suggests, we're going to have something a little bit different. Something simple. Something fun, in a sense. Well, I guess in every sense. We're doing a story time stream situation. I got affiliate some time ago and have decided, hey, you know what? Like, I want to do a celebration stream. Realistically, it was because of a friend of mine, a mutual. Some of you know them. The name's QB. Other streamer, friend, mutual, senpai, whatever. Was like, so when is it gonna happen? When's it gonna happen? When's it gonna happen? And I was like, well, I don't know. What should I even do? And we kind of workshopped a few things, but at the end of it, I was just like, you know what? At my core, I feel like at everybody's core, you know, we all have something we really like. And I really like stories, telling stories, writing stories, reading stories, and so on. So I figured, hey, why not just do that? I'll just read some of my favorite short stories, some of my favorite poems. I actually have the complete tales and poems of Edgar Allan Poe, who is one of my favorite poets, authors, whatever have you, as well as, you know, horror. I like horror. You guys know this. So having a horror author, you know, a collection of one of my favorite horror authors is, you know, great. And having it here, I realized, you know what, let me just do that. So that's kind of what inspired this. But we're not only going to do poems and short stories, or mainly that, but we do have a few other things. Some things were actually requested. I'm really happy to see. Yes, I will be reading The Raven. Yes, absolutely, I will be reading The Raven. But a few other things, some monologues here and there, and whatnot. I think will kind of help pad that out. And yeah, no, it's just gonna be a really good forward straight time for me, for sure. Because one, like I said, I like reading, I like narrating, I like making voices, doing funny silly things, and yeah, having an audience is not mandatory but always appreciated. So, you know, figured might as well do it with as many people as I can. So I'm really happy for everybody here. In fact, let me go ahead and see who is here real fast. Thank you to Aki. Aki's here. Archangel, hello. Oh, that's from Angel. Milfy, Dark Gemini, Homie Lover, Sparrow, my good friend Spaz, Thunder Ninja, and of course, the Angel himself are all here. I'm gonna go fight technology. Are you still having issues with Blurp, my friend? Tragic, truly tragic. Couldn't be me. But yeah, so we're actually gonna start this off with not from Edgar Allan Poe, but another fantastic, and it's not just Blurb. Oh no, is my stuff not working? Oh, Streamlabs. That'll do it. That'll do it. But it's not gonna be something from Edgar Allan Poe to begin with. It's a little bit more romantical. You know me. I'm a romantical person. It's gonna be the love song of J. Alfred Prufrock by T.S. Eliot, another amazing writer, poet of America. I believe was from America, but this comes from a large volume of poems he did way back when. but this one, the love song of J. Alfred Prufrock, the entirety of these sets of poems follow Alfred Prufrock through kind of like a little bit of their life. But this one in particular was one of my favorites, just because of the imagery and the ability, the way they are able to capture this almost ethereal idea and yet still be able to put it in so few words. So I'm gonna go ahead and let me know if the music is too low. I know I lowered it already, but let me know if it kind of gets in the way. I had to find some royalty-free music, and that took a second, but here we are. We will begin with the love song of J. Alfred Prufrock. Let us go then, you and I, when the evening is spread out against the sky like a patient etherized upon a table. Let us go through certain half-deserted streets, the muttering retreats of restless nights in one-night cheap hotels. Back the soot that falls from chimneys, slipped by the terrace, made a sudden leap, and seeing that it was a soft October night, curled once about the house and fell asleep. And indeed there will be time for the yellow smoke that slides along the street, rubbing its back upon the window panes. Jesus, I'll get to that in a second. Whoops, let me put that up front. Sorry. There it is. I'm gonna put this up here. Thank you, Dark Gemini. Where was I? And indeed there will be the time for the yellow smoke that slides along the street, rubbing its back upon the window panes. There will be time to prepare a face to meet the faces that you meet. There will be time to murder and create, and time for all the works and days of hands that lift and drop a question on your plate. Time for you and time for me, and time yet for 100 indecisions, and for 100 visions and revisions before the taking of Lost in Tea. Oh, we're in an ad break. Ooh, whoops. Sorry, y'all. Forgot about the ads. And I'm having internet connections. Whoops. Might have to swap my internet real quick. Oh, there we are. Give me 1 second, everyone. Hello! Hello, sorry about that. I was having to reconnect my internet. Well, not reconnect my internet, but reconnect to a usable internet. I forgot about the ad, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make sure I keep a better eye on that and make sure that I'm not kind of cutting into my own time with the ads. Where were we? And indeed there will be time for the yellow smoke that slides along the street, rubbing its back upon the window panes. There will be time to prepare a face to meet the faces that you meet. There will be time to murder and create, and time for all the works and days of hands that lift and drop a question on your plate. Time for you, and time for me, and time yet for 100 indecisions, and for 100 visions and revisions, before the taking of a toast and tea. In the room the women come and go, talking of Michelangelo, and indeed there will be time to wonder, do I dare? And do I dare? Time to turn back and descend the stair, with a bald spot in the middle of my hair. They will say how his hair is growing thin. My morning coat, my collar mounting firmly to the chin, my necktie rich and modest, but asserted by a simple pin. They will say, but how his arms and legs are thin! Do I dare disturb the universe? In a minute there is time for decisions and revisions, which a minute will reverse. For I have known them already, known them all, have known the evenings, mornings, afternoons. I have measured out my life with coffee spoons. I know the voices dying with a dying fall beneath the music from a farther room. So how should I presume? And I have known the eyes already, known them all, the eyes that fix you in a formulated phrase, and when I am formulated, sprawling on a pin, when I am pinned and wriggling on the wall, then how should I begin? To spit out all the butt ends of my days and ways, and how should I presume? And I have known the arms already, known them all, arms that are bracketed and white and bare, but in the lamplight, downed with light brown hair. Is it perfume from a dress that makes me so digress? Arms that lie along a table or wrap about a shawl, and should I then presume? And how should I begin? Shall I say I have gone at dusk through narrow streets and watched the smoke that rises from the pipes of lonely men in shirt sleeves leaning out of windows? I should have been a pair of ragged claws scuttling across the floors of silent seas. And the afternoon, the evening, sleeps so peacefully, smoothed by long fingers, asleep, tired, or it malingers. Stretched on the floor here beside you and me. Should I, after tea and cakes and ices, have the strength to force the moment to its crisis? But though I have wept and fasted, wept and prayed, though I have seen my head grown slightly bald, brought it on a platter, I am no prophet, and here's no greater matter. I have seen the moment of my greatness flicker, and I have seen the eternal footman hold my coat and snicker, and in short, I was afraid. And would it have been worth it all? Worth it, after all, after the cups, the marmalade, the tea, among the porcelain, among some talk of you and me, would it have been worthwhile to have bitten off the matter with a smile, to have squeezed the universe into a ball, to roll it towards some overwhelming question? To say, I am Lazarus, come from the dead, come back to tell you all, I shall tell you all. If one, settling a pillow by her head, should say, that is not what I meant at all. That is not it at all. And would it have been worth it after all? Would it have been worthwhile after the sunsets and the dooryards and the sprinkled streets, after the novels, after the teacups, after the skirts that trail along the floor, and this and so much more? It is impossible to say just what I mean, but as if a magic lantern threw the nerves in a patterns on the screen, would it have been worthwhile if one, settling a pillow or throwing off a shawl and turning toward the window, should say, that is not it at all. That is not what I meant at all. No, I am not Prince Hamlet, nor was meant to be. Am an attendant lord, one that will do to swallow progress, start a scene or two. Advise the prince, no doubt, an easy tool. Deferential, glad to be of use. Politic, cautious and meticulous. Full of high sentence, but a bit obtuse. At times, indeed, almost ridiculous. Almost, at times, the fool. I grow old. I shall wear the bottoms of my trousers rolled. Shall I part my hair behind, or do I dare to eat a peach? I shall wear white flannel trousers and walk upon the beach. I've heard the mermaids singing, each to each. I do not think that they will sing to me. I have seen them riding seaward on the waves, combing the white hair of the waves blown back, when the wind blows and the water white and black. We have lingered in the chambers of the sea, by sea-girls wreathed with seaweed red and brown, till human voices wake us, and we drown. A bit of a longer poem, but at the base of it, there's such beauty and expression through it of wanting to know, like, what is more. Wanting to go somewhere, wanting to essentially dream. Gosh, what a poem. What a poem. Sorry, I have to put up something. So, I really wanted to start off with that poem just because of how it really kind of puts together the era that T.S. Eliot was in, kind of place them in a point in time that's so obvious to his own time without expressly saying this is the time it is, because this was back in the early 20s, 1915, that this was published. And to still have that sense of like, do I fill up space? Do I take the time to kind of be? And I feel like it's always important to kind of have that question, more so for the fact that without it, like, how do we know if we're doing enough? But at the same time, like, we don't need it to define us. Chills. But I did want to go back and thank you, Dark Gemini, for subscribing at all. That was, wow. Thank you. I really appreciate that. It is a good one, right? Yeah, it's one of the greats made by one of the greats, you know? So a little stereotypical to start it off with, but there's something about it, the wonder, that really, you know, catches my eye, and it's why I find it so fun to have, really. But we're gonna go ahead and kind of move away from the fantastical fantasy love romance, and we're kind of gonna go into something that I really like, which is horror. The Road Not Taken, Robert Frost. Yeah, sure. Let me pull that one up. And yes, absolutely, I have a list of stuff that I do want to read today. But if anybody has anything in particular that they're like, oh, I want to try that, I want to hear that, absolutely drop it in, and you know, it's likely I will try and get to mainly the requested stuff, both poems and short stories. But I'm going to kind of put the bulk of the poems up front, and then the short stories we're going to kind of have in the back. But yeah, at any point anybody wants to jump in and kind of throw in a book that they're like, I want to hear that, or a poem or a short story, drop it in the chat and we'll rock on. So The Road Not Taken by Robert Frost. I'm not too familiar with Robert Frost. I know I've heard his name here and there in my literary teachings back in the day. Hello, Knox. How you doing? We're actually just about to start The Road Not Taken by Robert Frost. So this is my first time reading this. I'm very excited. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both, and be one traveler long I stood, and looked down one as far as I could, to where it bent in the undergrowth. No, you have not missed it. You've not missed it, Knox. I've not read yours yet, but I will. Then took the other as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear. Though as for that the passing there had worn them really about the same. And both that morning equally lay, and leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day, yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence, two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. A nice short one, but still very powerful in its message of knowing, hey, you know, one path that I want to go down, that's the prettier path, where it's obvious that people have been through. But then there's another path that is harsher and not as trodden, but yet still taking the one that looks harsher, seems harsher. It does make all the difference. Being able to choose your path in the beginning at all is such a interesting thing, because we never know when those moments happen, in a sense, right? rarely do we know when that one choice is going to change your life so heavily. But when we do know, when we do get to see that choice in front of us, it's something so magical yet horrifying. Because where life can go is impossible to know. Even if you think you know the road, you know exactly all the windings, all the turns, all the shortcuts even. All you have an idea of is the destination. And even if you've been to that destination before, you never know how that road will shake you, take you, or break you. And what I do appreciate about this poem is that it never says specifically whether or not that decision was the right one, or that what they benefited from it, or what they didn't, what they lost. Obviously, I feel like the implication is that, oh yeah, go on adventure, but we never get to see or understand like what was the result of taking that path. And I feel like it's important in a sense that we have that. It's a path you take even if it's not a common or right one. Exactly. It's still the path you take, and it's still the path that defines you. But oh yeah, that's a good one. Thank you. That was very, very good. Thank you for sharing that one. I've definitely heard the saying, oh, take the one less traveled, but I've never actually read the entire poem before. So thank you very much for that. So to go with one that was requested, I'm waiting for them to appear. I hope they do. So I'm gonna give it some time, but I'm gonna go ahead and go with one that was requested by a good friend of mine and a great supporter as well. I wish I set up Stream Elements so I can give you a shout out. So I'm gonna give you a verbal shout out. Please, please, please not find, but please, please, please give a great thank you from me, a shout out to Noxus_Rose, who has been a great help to me coming back to streaming as a VTuber and helping me get to affiliate what this whole stream is a celebration of. Thank you so much to you, Nox. You have been fantastic. Your company, your words, and watching your streams have been nothing but so fun and great and awesome. And I hope, even if we don't collab as much or whatever have you, I thank you for your appearance in my life. But for him, something a little bit different. Hi, Aki. Something a little bit different. We're not going to do a poem or a short story necessarily. We're going to do the monologue from Rocky, of course performed famously by Sylvester Stallone as Rocky Balboa. And I feel like it's important, leading in from the poem we just read, I feel like is very interesting to lead into this one. I feel like it makes sense, having just come from a poem of what path you take and the possibilities of how much it can change you. I want everybody to remember that as we go over this monologue, which is, as we all know, one of hundreds of monologues to end all monologues. This is the one thing that means the most as far as a quote. Yes, yes, to you, to me, to so many people. And I feel like it resonates greatly because of the message. I'm not going to do the voice. I'm sorry. I'll try not to. There's a part of me that instinctively wants to, but I'm going to try not to. Let me tell you something you already know. The world ain't all sunshine and rainbows. It's a very mean and nasty place, and I don't care how tough you are. It will beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it. You, me, or nobody is gonna hit as hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done. Now, if you know what you're worth, then go out and get what you're worth. But you gotta be willing to take the hits. And not pointing fingers saying you ain't where you want to be because of him or her or anybody. Cowards do that. And that ain't you. You're better than that. Very emotional speech. If we remember, this is one of the great scenes of the movie. And it hits home. It really does. And I think there's something important in being able to say that life is so difficult. It can be so difficult, and nothing can be more. But to be able to take all of that and keep going is strength. It's beauty. It's everything, you know? So thank you, Knox, for the request, and thank you for everything you've done for me, for everything you've done for, I'm sure, so many other people as well. You're one of the beacons of the circle that I found myself in. So thank you. And I do want to also make a note that even though life can be difficult, it's still up to us, up to each other, to be able to kind of rise above that and be able to be there for each other, you know? Gosh. So, moving from there, we're going to move into something a little bit spookier. In this sense, I wanted to read kind of still horror, but still hope. I wanted to read one of my favorite. It's technically a creepypasta. That's where I first heard it from. I tried finding out who the original author is, and I couldn't really. There's a lot of people who are kind of claiming ownership. So it's a little hard for me to exactly find who the author is. I think it was the original post was from Reddit. And that credit was to the user The Leary Valley. It's called The Rotted Man. When I was a child of only 3, the rotted man came for me. Late one night from my open door, he slowly crept across the floor. He took me by the hand and said, I'll save you from this life of dread. We left the house in the early morn and took his carriage of blackened thorn. We rode for hours through thick, dense fog to a darkened, unlit, swamp-filled bog, where topless trees with hanging moss were shields from the unseen winter frost. The thick, wet heat from the dense, cool air crept up your back and through your hair. He took me to his house of bones, on a path laid with cobblestones. Upon his door hung a head of a child with hair of fiery red. His hall was bathed in blood-red tile. The walls were stacks of flesh in piles. He told me of his protective view and begged that I should join him too. He smiled, and through his rotted lips, I saw 1,000 children's fingertips. He promised me the world would pay, and told me that I could stay. Then we entered a smaller room, and the rotted man gave me a red balloon. Then I saw my mom through tinted glass. The man with her was talking fast. The tears were pouring from her eyes. The man then held her while she cried. Then the rotted man did the strangest thing. He sat down with me and began to sing. A soft, nice tune that filled my head with puppy dogs and fresh baked bread. It was then that I noticed that the rotted man was simply old and had a tan. And then my mom burst in the room, the feel of warmth, her sweet perfume. She hugged me tight and swore to me, from here on out, Dad would let us be. No more bruises, no more fights, no more screaming in the night. The rotted man had saved our lives by taking those who beat their wives, and children that cry when they're dropped and are beaten senseless until they stop. I thank the rotted man a lot, and never have I forgot that the thing I feared saved my life. They had found my father with a knife. There are real horrors on this earth. Some are subjected to them at birth. We were saved by a man made of rot. I was lucky, but many are not. Oh. It's a very interesting depiction of domestic abuse. First introducing this rotted man who is a monster, you know? And to slowly realize, even through most of this, how it shifts from this dreary, black, monstrous image to then turning it slowly to the realization that this man is not a monster. It may be obvious, it may not be, but the rotted man in question in this case is a policeman, or a detective, rather. The narrator in this case is obviously a child who had gone through horrible things, so all he sees are horrible things. And to have that soul realization of when his mom, comes in and he's comforted and light is kind of shed onto him after finding, that the abuser, his father, is going to be put away. And it feels great, but it very quickly stops feeling so great, because that last stanza, we were saved by a man made of rot. I was lucky, but many are not. It kind of brings you back to that harsh realization that just as much as good there is in this narrative, not many are lucky. Not many are lucky. So kind of continuing from there and going to, continue the kind of concept of scary men, we're now going to read The Crooked Man. There was a crooked man who walked a crooked mile. He found a crooked sixpence upon a crooked stile. Oh, we're actually starting an ad. I'll go ahead and I'm just going to snooze it. I want to make sure I snooze it so I can finish this. He bought a crooked cat who caught a crooked mouse, and they all lived together in a little crooked house. But the crooked man was sad, and once he had a thought. Why should he be crooked when others, they were not? Everything was worthless. He heaved a great big sigh, and went and found a rope and tied it to the sky. A Upon a chair he stood. His eyes were blank and dead. Without another thought, he went and hung his head. Now the story's not yet over, for this tale is mythed and old. Go hide under the cover. There's something not yet told. There once was a crooked man who had a crooked smile. And if you lived his life, he'll send you through a trial. He lives for your torment, makes it full of strife, and he won't be content until you take your life. So this one was just interesting to me because as I was finding again The Rotted Man, I found this poem. And what was more interesting to me than the actual poem itself, because although, you know, the poem does deal with, you know, adult themes of suicide and depression, it itself just kind of has an interesting backstory. So the original poem, The Crooked Man, it's a lot shorter, I think, and it's really just up to the point where he had a crooked cat and in a crooked mouse, lived in a crooked house, all that. It's kind of where it ends in the original. The rest of it was actually adapted later. So the original was actually written by James Orchard Halliwell back in 1842, which was published in a collection of other nursery rhymes and short stories. And that was then adapted to the Conjuring movie, specifically the second Conjuring movie. Which is interesting because that original publication was based on another nursery rhyme that is a little bit more lighthearted, a little bit, you know, kinder, that was called There Was a Crooked Man. I just thought it was interesting. I'm not going to be reading There Was a Crooked Man, but thought it was interesting. So, kind of ending the kind of not so great poem into really, really good poems. We're cracking the book now, going into Edgar Allan Poe's Complete Tales and Poems. Now, the specific edition I have is a publication through Fall River. And this, I forget exactly when it was released, but this was mine that I got a little bit ago. But we're going to go ahead and begin with Dreams. Dreams by Edgar Allan Poe. Oh, that my young life were a lasting dream, my spirit not wakening till the beam of an eternity should bring the morrow. Yes, though that long dream were of hopeless sorrow, 'twere better than that cold reality of waking life to him whose heart must be and hath been still upon the lovely earth, a chaos of deep passion from his birth. Sorry, I keep knocking the microphone. But should it be that dream eternally continuing as dreams have been to me, in my young boyhood should it thus be given, 'twere folly still to hope for higher heaven. For I have reveled when the sun was bright, the summer sky in dreams of living light, and loveliness have left my very heart in climes of my imagining apart from mine own home, with beings that have been of mine own thought. What more could I have seen? 'Twas once, and only once, and the wild hour from my remembrance shall not pass. Some power or spell had bound me. 'Twas the chilly wind. Oh, ad starting. I don't have another snooze. Alrighty. We'll go ahead and we'll let the ads roll. And when we return, we'll go ahead and we'll restart Dreams. I'll go ahead and I'll speak with Gemini, my subscriber. And like I said, if there's anybody who has any poems want to be read, any short stories, leave them in the chat. I'll see about getting to them. But we'll keep on reading some nice poems, nice quotation marks. Um, but yeah, I'll see you guys in a few. Shouldn't be too long. I think it's about a minute and a half. Rest in peace, indeed. But don't worry, we'll eventually get to the Raven. I promise. So, Gemini, how you doing? Doing good, I hope. I hope my voice is coming in nice and clear, and I hope that you're enjoying my reading. Some of these, it's been a while since I've read some of these. Others, not so much. But all in all, I just like reading. Actually, that reminds me, I'm gonna take a quick swig of water. Need to pick up this. Lean down. Grab. Pick up. I really do hope that, there we go. Okay. Oh, nope. Gotta fix my face. You're a cyborg, fix my technology issues? I wish I could. Need more than a swig. Absolutely. Hold on. Okay, now the ad started. Good to know. Oh, that reminds me. I need to add some rewards. I'm gonna see if I can do that live right here while we're here. Channel points. I think I can. Okay, cool. We have Drink Boy. Oh no, I already did. Okay, we're good. We're good. No need to do that. Second for. So Gemini, heard any good poems recently? Oh, excuse me. I'll give you a little taste of the Raven while we're here. While I have you as a dark passenger. Or should I wait? I think I should wait. Oh, it's hard. It's one of my favorites, you know? How else can I? Golly. We'll also eventually get into some H.P. Lovecraft. He was also a poet. Not the greatest guy, but that's neither here nor there. The ad break is finishing now. Is everybody back? Hello? Is everybody back? Sure, we'll find out in a second. Lone's here too. Hello. Gosh. Golly. Hello. Am I coming to you? Are we all here? I'm gonna give it another sec. But I think everybody should be back by now. So, where was I? Yes, Dreams by Edgar Allan Poe. We're gonna go ahead and we'll restart it. I hope everybody has a nice cup of coffee or some tea for this reading. Dreams by Edgar Allan Poe. Oh, that my young life were a lasting dream, my spirit not awakening till the beam of an eternity should bring the morrow. Yes, though that long dream of were hopeless sorrow, 'twere better than the cold reality of waking life, to him whose heart must be, and hath been still, upon the lovely earth, a chaos of deep passion from his birth. But it should be that dream eternally continuing, as dreams have been to me, in my young boyhood should it thus be given, 'twere folly still to hope for a higher heaven. For I have revelled when the sun was bright, I in the summer sky in dreams of living light, and loveliness have left me very heart in climes of my imagining apart from mine own home, with beings that have been of mine own thought. What more could I have seen? 'Twas once and only once, and the wild hour from my remembrance shall not pass. Some power or spell had bound me. 'Twas the chilly wind come over me in the night and left behind its image on my spirit. or the moon shone on my slumbers in her lofty noon, too coldly, or the stars, however it was. That dream was that night wind, let it pass. I have been happy, though, but in a dream. I have been happy, and I love the theme. Dreams, in their vivid coloring of life, as in that fleeting, shadowy, misty strife of semblance with reality which brings to the delirious eye more lovely things of paradise and love and all our own than young Hope in his sunniest hour hath known. To be able to dream, to be in dream, it's very special. And the way he depicts dreams in such a way of like passing, of remembrance, because it's hard to remember a dream, right? When you wake up, it's just gone. But to be able to then go and be able to talk about it is very fascinating to me. Yeah, that's why I like that poem. It may pass. It could be almost infinity. It could be forever that you feel in a dream, right? But once you're up, once it's gone, it's just gone. And in that essence, kind of passing, we move on to his next poem, Spirits of the Dead. Thy soul shall find itself alone mid dark thoughts of grey tombstone, not one of all the crowd to pry into thine hour of secrecy. Turn the page. Be silent in that solitude which is not loneliness, for then the spirits of the dead who stood in life before thee are again. In death around thee, and their will shall overshadow thee. Be still. The night, though clear, shall frown, and the stars shall look not down from the high thrones in the heaven, with light like hope to mortals a given. But their red orbs without beam to thy weariness shall seem as a burning and a fever, which would cling to thee forever. Now our thoughts thou shalt not banish, now our visions ne'er to vanish. From thy spirit shall they pass, no more like dewdrop from the grass. The breeze, the breath of God is still, and the mist upon the hill, shadowy yet unbroken, is a symbol and a token, how it hangs upon the trees. A mystery of mysteries. A fun little visualization of spirits still lingering here in this mortal coil. So from him, we're actually going to move over to a different author. You know, not the greatest man alive or to have lived, but the way he depicts the macabre and horror, the expansive horror of celestialness, in a sense. Here we have Nemesis by H.P. Lovecraft. Through the ghoul-guarded gateways of slumber, past the wan-mooned abysses of night, I have lived over my lives without number. I have sounded all things with my sight. And I struggle and shriek ere the day break, being driven to madness with fright. I have whirled with the earth at the dawning, when the sky was a vaporous flame. I have seen the dark universe yawning, where the black planets roll without aim. Where they roll in their horror unheeded, without knowledge or luster or name. I had drifted overseas without ending, under sinister gray clouded skies, that the many forked lightning is rending, that resound with hysterical cries, with the moans of invisible daemons that out of the green waters rise. I have plunged like a deer through the arches of the hoary primordial grove, where the oaks feel the presence that marches and stalks on to where no spirit dares rove. And I flee from a thing that surrounds me and leers through dead branches above. I have stumbled by cave-ridden mountains that rise barren and bleak from the plain. I have drunk the fog of fountains that ooze down to marsh and main, and in hot cursed tarns I have seen things I care not gaze on again. I have scanned the vast, ivy-clad palace, I have trod its untenanted hall, where the moon writhing up from the valleys shews the tapestried things on the wall. Strange figures discordantly woven, which I cannot endure to recall. I have peered from the casement in wonder at the mouldering meadows around, at the many-roofed village laid under the curse of a grave-girdled ground. And from rows of white urn-carven marble I listen intently for sound. I have haunted the tomb of the ages, I have flown on the pinions of fear, where the smoke-belching Erebus rages, where the jokels loom snow-clad and drear, and in realms where the sun of the desert consumes what it never can cheer. I was old when the pharaohs first mounted the jewel-decked throne by the Nile. I was old in those epochs uncounted, when I, and only I, was vile, and man, yet untainted and happy, dwelt in bliss on the far Arctic isle. Oh, great was the sin of my spirit, and great is the reach of its doom. Not the pity of heaven can cheer it, nor can respite be found in the tomb. Down the infinite aeons come beating the wings of unmerciful gloom. To be able to paint through mystery, through without actually describing, but to age and the picturesqueness of this thing, this nemesis, right? It's just fun. Because what is it? It's older than pharaohs. It's older than humanity. It's gone through the universe. It's been there since the beginning. And it's interesting to kind of take that and instill fear through the understanding that this thing was here before us, and it's likely going to be here after us. And for some reason to then call it Nemesis, it just kind of, you can't help but to feel like this thing is dangerous, right? Because it can do and has done and been through things that we can't possibly imagine. And that's something that I feel like is the thing that is memed on about H.P. Lovecraft a lot, is that a lot of his horror is, oh, well, you can't possibly imagine what this is like. And I get it to an extent, like, that's his deal. But at the same time, I feel like, how can you not be afraid of that? How can you not be afraid of what you don't know, right? And I feel like that kind of goes to show that knowledge can do so much to make us unafraid. Not just in something abstract like the Nemesis, but in everything. Because, you fear what you don't know. Well, here's to one day knowing. The poem after that, strangely enough, even though still be kind of creepy and macabre, is Romance by Edgar Allan Poe. This one's a shorter one. Romance, who loves to nod and sing, with drowsy head and folded wing, among the green leaves as they shake, far down within some shadowy lake. To me, a painted paroquet hath been a most familiar bird, taught me my alphabet to say, to lisp my very earliest word. While in the wildwood I did lie, a child with a most knowing eye, of late eternal condor years, to shake the very heaven on high, with tumult as they thunder by. I have no time for idle cares, through gazing on the unquiet sky, and when an hour with calmer wings its down upon my spirit flings, that little time with lyre and rhyme to while away forbidden things, my heart would feel to be a crime, unless it trembled with the strings. It's a very interesting way to talk about romance, to equate it so, not necessarily morbidly, but kind of depressingly. But to still be open to it. At the very end, my heart would feel to be a crime unless it trembled with the strings. Heartstrings, you know? We always allude to the idea of heartstrings, the plucking of them, the shaking of them. And so in that sense of kind of almost being afraid of romance, you don't want to bother with it unless it shakes your very core. I think is very interesting way to view romance, but still so real because of the fact that, you know, it can be scary, right? So the next poem we have is Request. I was hoping they would be here. They said they would try and make it, but looks like they might not. And that's okay. So we're going to go ahead and we're just going to read it here. This was requested by the Senor Ches, who had a birthday, I believe, last week. I know I told you happy birthday then, but happy birthday again. But this is Invictus by William Ernest Henley. Out of the night that covers me, black as the pit from pole to pole, I thank whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul. In the fell clutch of circumstance I have not winced nor cried aloud. Under the bludgeonings of chance my head is bloody, but unbowed. Beyond this place of wrath and tears looms but the horror of the shade, and yet the menace of the years finds and shall find me unafraid. It matters not how straight the gate, how charged with punishments the scroll. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. Very powerful to call on this imagery of what would realistically be, you know, unsurmountable odds of agony, wrath and tears, horror of the shade. To be able to face the darkness, to be able to face evil, to be able to face the horrors that go on day and day, and to still have, through all that suffering, the spirit to move on, the vindication, is a very powerful message, and I feel like we can all resonate with it. That poem comes from William Ernest Henley. I'm not familiar with his work either, but I feel like might be time to look into them, you know? So after that poem, we have, I feel like what everybody was waiting for, and we're just gonna go ahead and we're gonna not do it quite yet. Aha, faked ya, haha, faked ya, gotcha. So we're not gonna do the Raven just yet, because there was a poem I wanted to kind of go over first, and kind of broach the subject of kind of not a very important piece of the puzzle when it comes to the Raven itself, but still something that I found very interesting in how Poe handles the idea of having lost love. So we're not going to do the Raven just yet. We are instead going to do Lenore. Now this one is a little bit interesting. It's kind of a halfway between a story stanza kind of thing, but I feel like it's important that we talk about it because I feel like there are going to be a couple poems today that go over Lenore or mention Lenore, and it's important to know not just why, but how he kind of goes about it, right? Oh wow, we've already gone through an hour. Ugh. Okay. We'll do this. We'll do the Raven. I do want to do Jabberwocky, the final speech, and then I want to at least do one short story if we can. I didn't expect I didn't expect to take so long. Well, I guess we do have some ads that I want to make sure that I wait for, wait for them to end and whatnot. But there are a few. There's one in particular I do want to do. Telltale Heart. It was a request by Dr. Plague. And if I can, I would like to do I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, which is another fantastic short story by Harlan Ellison. But I do want to, just real quick, we're going to go over Lenore. We're going to go, after that, do the Raven, Jabberwocky, the final speech, and then we'll go into the short stories. Lenore by Edgar Allan Poe. Ah, broken is the golden bowl, the spirit flown forever. Let the bell toll, a saintly soul floats on the Stygian river. And Guy de Vere, hast thou no tear? Weep now or nevermore. See, on yon drear and rigid bier, low lies thy love, Lenore. Come, let the burial rite be read, the funeral song be sung, an anthem for the queenliest dead that ever died so young. A dirge for her, the doubly dead, in that she died so young. Wretches, ye loved her for her wealth, and ye hated her for her pride. And, when she fell in feeble health, ye blessed her that she died. How shall the ritual then be read? The requiem how be sung by you, by yours, the evil eye, by yours, the slanderous tongue that did to death the innocents that died and died so young. Peccavimus, yet rave not thus, but let a Sabbath song go up to God so solemnly the dead may feel no wrong. The sweet Lenore hath gone before with hope that flew beside, leaving thee wild for the dear child that should have been thy bride. For her, the fair and debonair that now so lowly lies, the life upon her yellow hair, but not within her eyes. The life still there upon her hair, the death upon her eyes. Avaunt! Avaunt! To friends from fiends the indignant ghost is riven, from hell unto a high estate within the utmost heaven. From moan and groan to a golden throne beside the King of Heaven. Let no bell toll then, lest her soul amid its hallowed mirth shall catch the note as it doth float up from the damned earth. And I, tonight my heart is light. No dirge will I upraise, but waft the angel on her flight with a paean of old days. So that heated speech was about a young girl, Lenore. Now, the interesting thing about that is there's a little bit of discussion about who Lenore actually is, whether they're a real person or not. And the most popular assumption is that Lenore is actually a stand-in for Edgar Allan Poe's deceased wife, Victoria, who I believe died quite young, even in those ages. Unfortunately, he did marry someone much younger than him, and that's, people are going to say that's of the time, and that's fine, but at the same time, ew. But even for their age, she passed away very early in life. So a lot of people attribute Lenore as being a stand-in for Victoria, his wife. Other people actually reference or believe that they might be talking about his brother, Leonard, who he had a very, very close relationship with and who also died young for their age. And so there's this very interesting kind of discussion of loss, love, and through that, a lot of people believe that Lenore is simply just a very standard stand-in for loss of love. But it's very interesting to think about the two different ways that you can lose love. You can lose romantical love, and yet, or otherwise, lose the love of family. Especially when you're so close, because, family is you. And you're your family. either chosen or not, but still that bond of family, to be able to love without lust, is so powerful in itself. So I think it's very interesting to understand his work is to know that difference, because it could be either one, right? Or both, or neither. So with that, now kind of going over Lenore and what she means, who she means in the grand scheme of Edgar Allan Poe's work, I believe now we can go to what everybody's been waiting for, and we could read over The Raven. The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe. Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered, weak and weary, over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore, while I nodded, nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping, as of someone gentle rapping at my chamber door. "'Tis some visitor," I muttered, "tapping at my chamber door. Only this, and nothing more." I remember it was in the bleak December, and each separate dying ember wrought its ghost upon the floor. Eagerly I wished the morrow. Vainly I had sought to borrow from my books surcease of sorrow for the lost Lenore, for the rare and radiant maiden whom the angels named Lenore, nameless here forevermore. And the silken, sad, uncertain rustling of each purple curtain thrilled me, filled me with fantastic terrors never felt before, so that now, to still the beating of my heart, I stood repeating, "'Tis some visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door, some late visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door. This it is, and nothing more." Presently my soul grew stronger, hesitating then no longer. "Sir," I said, "or madam, truly your forgiveness I implore. But the fact is, I was napping, and so gently you came rapping, and so faintly you came tapping at my chamber door, that I scarce was sure I heard you. Here I opened wide the door. Darkness there, and nothing more." Deep into that darkness peering, long I stood there wondering, fearing, doubting, dreaming dreams no mortal ever dared to dream before. But the silence was unbroken, and the darkness gave no token, and the only word there spoken was the whispered word, "Lenore." This I whispered, and an echo murmured back the word, "Lenore." Merely this, and nothing more. Back into the chamber turning, all my soul within me burning, soon again I heard a tapping somewhat louder than before. "Surely," said I, "surely that is something at my window lattice. Let me see then what thereat is, and this mystery explore. Let my heart be still a moment, and this mystery explore. 'Tis the wind and nothing more." Open here I flung the shutter, when with many a flirt and flutter, in there stepped a stately raven of the saintly days of yore. Not the least obeisance made he, not a minute stopped or stayed he, but, with mien of lord or lady, perched above my chamber door, perched upon a bust of Pallas, just above my chamber door, perched and sat, and nothing more. Then this ebony bird, beguiling my sad fancy into smiling, by the grave and stern decorum of the countenance it wore. "Though thy crest be shorn and shaven, thou," I said, "art sure no craven, ghastly, grim, and ancient raving, wandering from the nightly shore. Tell me what thy lordly name is on the night's Plutonian shore." Quoth the Raven, "Nevermore." An ad break is starting soon, but I think I can finish it. Thank you, QB. Welcome, mother. Yes, it took me about 3 hours to figure this all out. 3 minutes in. I think I can finish it. "Much I marveled this ungainly fowl to hear discourse so plainly, though its answer little meaning, little relevancy bore. For we cannot help agreeing that no living human being ever yet was blessed with seeing bird above his chamber door, bird or beast upon the sculpted bust above his chamber door with such name as Nevermore. But the raven sitting lonely on the placid bust spoke only that one word. Ah, beans. Sorry, guys. Ads are about to start. We're going to go ahead and pause it there. God, I love that poem. Just having so much fun being able to roll around with words and noise and sound. Ah, it's beautiful. It's very creepy. I feel like I need to change the music. I'm gonna change the music to something a little bit more spooky. I think this is good. It's just not very long. I need something longer. I need something that's like an hour long. How's this? I think this should be good. Yeah, that's better. Oh, ooh, I'm actually getting kind of hungry. Probably have prepared some food. I just don't like to because it triggers one of my gastrointestinal things. It's a whole thing. 1 minute. Yeah, I think this sound. I'm gonna turn it up for everyone. Alrighty, perfect. Ooh, yeah, now this is setting the mood. Hello, everybody! Welcome back. I have changed the music. Something a little bit more appropriate. Now, where were we? Ah, yes. We were with our good friend Edgar Allan Poe, reading The Raven. But the raven sitting lonely on the placid bust spoke only that one word, as if his soul in that one word he did outpour. Nothing farther than he uttered, not a feather than he fluttered, till I scarcely more than muttered. Other friends have flown before, on the morrow he will leave me, as my hopes have flown before. Then the bird said, Nevermore. Startled at the stillness broken by reply so aptly spoken, Doubtless, said I, what it utters is its only stock and store, caught from some unhappy master, whom unmerciful disaster followed fast and followed faster, till his songs one burden bore, till the dirges of his hope that melancholy burden bore, of never, nevermore. But the raven, still beguiling my sad fancy into smiling, straight I wheeled a cushioned seat in front of the bird, and bust in door. Then, upon the velvet sinking, I betook myself to linking fancy unto fancy, thinking what his ominous bird of yore, what his grim, ungainly, ghastly, gaunt, and ominous bird of yore meant in croaking, Nevermore. Sorry, I gotta turn on my nightlight. There we are. This, I sat engaged in guessing, but no syllable expressing to the fowl whose fiery eyes now burned into Blossom's core. This and more I sat divining, with my head at ease reclining on the cushion's velvet lining, that the lamp lighted gloated o'er, but whose velvet violet lining with the lamplight gloating o'er. She shall pass. Ah, nevermore. Then, methought, the air grew denser, perfumed from an unseen censer, swung by seraphim whose footfalls tinkled on the tufted floor. Wretch, I cried, thy God hath lent thee, by these angels he hath sent thee respite, respite and nepenthe from thy memories of Lenore. Quaff, oh quaff this kind nepenthe, and forgot this lost Lenore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Prophet, said I, thing of evil, prophet still if bird or devil, whether tempter sent or whether tempest tossed thee here ashore, desolate yet undaunted, on this desert land enchanted, on this home by horror haunted, tell me truly, I implore, is there balm in Gilead? Tell me, I implore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Prophet, said I, thing of evil, prophet still if bird or devil. I already read that part. Oh no, I didn't. By that heaven that bends above us, by that God we both adore, tell this soul with sorrow laden, if within the distant Aiden it shall clasp a saint and maiden, whom the angels named Lenore, clasp a rare and radiant maiden, whom the angels named Lenore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Be that word our sign of parting, bird or fiend, I shrieked upstarting, get thee back into the tempest and the night's Plutonian shore. Leave no black plume as a token of that lie that soul hath spoken. Leave my loneliness unbroken, quit the bust above my door. Take thy beak out from my heart, and take that form from off my door. Quoth the raven, nevermore. And the raven, never flitting, still is sitting on the pallid bust of Pallas just above my chamber door. And his eyes have all the seeming of a demon's that is dreaming, and the lamplight o'er him streaming throws a shadow on the floor, and my soul from that outshadow that lies floating on the floor shall be lifted nevermore. Oh. And the reason I wanted to make sure we spoke about Lenore before we read that was, for most of that, this raven who haunts him, ravens at the time, and even still now, and crows for that matter, are huge symbolism for death. And so to be visited by death, and to still does he ask, is she there? Is she in the afterlife? Is there a possibility that I can see her again? It really puts into perspective how much he was just so heartbroken. Edgar Allan Poe lost so many people throughout his life, and that, to an extent, that was all he really knew. And to be able to put that forward and in such ways is so fascinating to me, and it's so just amazing. Yeah, I love the Raven. I love it. Okay, golly, let's see. Up next, yes, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna go forward. Excuse me. I love how you read that with so much emotion. Thank you. It's hard not to, because one, I like voice acting. A little bit about myself: I was an amateur voice actor through college. Didn't get a whole lot of like official posted roles, and any that I did ended up going sour, more so for the fact that the person behind the project just kind of were not great people. And love your flavor of tism. Oh, absolutely. I love books. I love stories. I love voices. I love sharing. Okay. So we're gonna go on to the next poem. Another big favorite of mine, because it really encapsulates the idea that you really can be so creative in anything, and in this case, words. And this brand of verbiage, this brand of literary creativeness comes to us, of course, by Lewis Carroll in his poem Jabberwocky. "'Twas brillig, and the slithy toves did gyre and gimble in the wabe. All mimsy were the borogoves, and the mome raths outgrabe. Beware the Jabberwock, my son, the jaws that bite, the claws that catch. Beware the Jub bird, and shun the frumious Bandersnatch. He took his vorpal sword in hand, long time the manxome foe he sought. So rested he by the Tumtum tree, and stood a while in thought. And as in uffish thought he stood, the Jabberwock with eyes of flame came whiffling through the tulgey wood, and burmbled as it came. 1, 2, 1, 2, and through the vorpal blade went snicker snack. He left it dead, and with its head he went galumphing back. And hast thou slain the Jabberwock? Come to my arms, my beamish boy, or frabjous day, Callooh, Callai, he chortled in his joy. 'Twas brillig, and the slithy toves did gyre and gimble wabe. All mimsy were the borogoves, and the mome raths outgrabe. Now, interesting you bring that up, QB, of the Jabberwock. As he, I believe, let me see. Whoops. I believe the author for the original was Lewis Carroll. Yeah, okay. I don't know why I looked that up, like I couldn't just say that in confidence. Yeah, so the Jabberwock, Alice in Wonderland, yes. Lewis Carroll is the author of the original literary publication of Alice in Wonderland. Now, the Jabberwocky in particular was a part, not necessarily of Alice in Wonderland. It was actually published through his book. I need you to read all the Harry Potter series for me, and the Eragon series. Oh, dude, I would just that wholesale. I would. So the Jabberwocky poem originally was released in the Random House of Book of in a literary piece called Through the Looking Glass, which of course was Lewis Carroll's another Lewis Carroll's publications that had a number of poems. Now, what I really love about the Jabberwocky is just the refusal to accept the ordinary in word. Because, like, these words don't exist. Like, Bandersnatch, Manxome, Tumtum Tree, Borogoves, Outgrabe, Gimble. What is galumphing, right? When this was first written, galumphing did not have meaning. But even, I don't know if it actually has a definition. At this point, I'm assuming it's just to travel back with glee. But galumphing is such a visual that exists from a word that doesn't make sense, that shouldn't make sense. Galumphing. Just the way the word is said clues you into what it means, right? So if we look up the official term for galumphing, because it was eventually written into dictionary, into true literature, the definition of galumphing is moving in a clumsy, ponderous, or noisy manner, inelegant. And it's interesting because that in particular was added to the dictionary some time ago, but it wasn't brought into true use until really after this poem. So it's very interesting to kind of look at it that way, because it's the understanding of word, sound, noise, and association. And just the whimsy of the poem itself is just so fun. It's fantastic. Also, hello, Jackstream TTV, first time chatter. You were actually really close, QB. It's with an A, not an O. Galumphing back. Play Hogwarts Legacy W game. I actually do have Hogwarts Legacy on PlayStation. I think I might have gotten it on Epic Games as well. I forget. But yes, I do have Hogwarts Legacy on PS5. I actually got it because I worked at GameStop when it came out. I was actually what was it? Assistant manager. I forget. But yeah, no, got a free code, so I have it. So that was the Jabberwocky. Now, there was another poem I wanted to go over, but just for the interest of time, I have Hogwarts Legacy. We should play together. Is it co-op? I'll let you answer that. Yeah, maybe I will do just some straight up reading streams, and we can just read books all day. Let's see here. Yeah, so I was going to go into this poem, but for the interest of time, I'm going to go ahead and do a different poem, different reading. This is another monologue. This one is a little long, but it's one of my all-time favorites. And the context of not only this scene, but the movie when it came out, the history behind the movie, is just fascinating to me, and still very much rings true to the modern era, right? So this, I don't believe it has an official title. It's just called The Final Speech, but it is the final speech from the Great Dictator, which was a black and white film that was released, I believe, back in the 30s or early 40s, but it has Charlie Chaplin in the movie, The Great Dictator. And what's interesting is that this is actually Charlie Chaplin's first movie that he was in that had sound. As we know, Charlie Chaplin, amazing actor, was known for his silent films, but this was the first movie he released that was in sound. And it's important for a number of reasons, and we're going to go back to that in a second at the end. But this is a little bit of a long speech, but I think it's very important. I want to make sure I go through it. It's one of my favorite speeches, period. So this is the final speech from The Great Dictator, performed originally and written by Charlie Chaplin. I'm sorry, but I don't want to be an emperor. That's not my business. I don't want to rule or conquer anyone. I should like to help everyone if possible. Jew, Gentile, black man, white. We all want to help one another. Human beings are like that. We want to live by each other's happiness, not by each other's misery. We don't want to hate and despise one another. In this world, there is room for everyone, and the good earth is rich and can provide for everyone. The way of life can be free and beautiful. But we've lost the way. Greed has poisoned men's souls, has barricaded the world with hate, has goose-stepped us into misery and bloodshed. We have developed speed, but we have shut ourselves in. Machinery that gives us abundance has left us in want. Our knowledge has made us cynical, our cleverness hard and unkind. We think too much and feel too little. More than machinery, we need humanity. More than cleverness, we need kindness and gentleness. Without these qualities, life will be violent and all will be lost. The airplane and the radio have brought us closer together. The very nature of these inventions cry out for the goodness in man, cries out for universal brotherhood, for the unity of us all. Even now, my voice is reaching millions throughout the world, millions of despairing men, women, and little children, victims of a system that makes men torture and imprison innocent people. To those who can hear me, I say, do not despair. The misery that is now upon us is but the passing of greed, the bitterness of men who fear the way of human progress. The hate of men will pass, and dictators will die. And the power they took from the people will return to the people, and so long as men die, liberty will never perish. Soldiers, don't give yourselves to brutes. Men who despise you, enslave you, who regiment your lives, tell you what to do, what to think, and what to feel. Who drill you, diet you, treat you like cattle, use you as cannon fodder. Don't give yourself to these unnatural men. Machine men with machine minds and machine hearts. You are not machines. You're not cattle. You're men. You have the love of humanity in your hearts. You don't hate. Only the unloved hate. The unloved and the unnatural. Soldiers don't fight for slavery. Fight for liberty. In the 17th chapter of St. Luke, it is written, "The kingdom of God is within man. Not one man or a group of men, but in all men, in you. You, the people, have the power to create machines, the power to create happiness. You, the people, have the power to make this life free and beautiful, to make this life a wonderful adventure. Then, in the name of democracy, let us use that power. Let us all unite. Let us fight for a new world. A decent world that will give men a chance to work, that will give youth a future, and old age a security. By the promise of these things, brutes have risen to power, but they lie. They do not fulfill that promise. They never will. Dictators free themselves, but they enslave the people. Now, let us fight to fulfill that promise. Let us fight to free the world, to do away with national barriers, to do away with greed, with hate, and intolerance. Let us fight for a world of reason, a world where science and progress will lead to all men's happiness. Soldiers, in the name of democracy, let us all unite." Oh. The interesting thing about this movie is it's very, very obvious a criticism of Nazi Germany, a commentary of it. And it's very interesting that that relationship, because of the fact that Charlie Chaplin, even in his era, we know him for having that square mustache that we also know of Hitler, who wore that same mustache. But that goes deeper. Charlie Chaplin and Hitler were born 4 days apart. Isn't that... How is that not crazy, right? How is that not talked about more in the dialogue of, Charlie Chaplin had the Hitler stash? They were literally born within a week of each other. And they both went on to be completely different people. One went on to be a heartless evil. And the other one came into this position of wanting to be that voice of life, of wonder, of creativity. And then in his very, very first dialogue movie, to come in and to denounce him, Hitler, and his ideas. In the movie The Great Dictator, Charlie Chaplin plays two characters. He plays Hinkel, who is a Jewish barber living in a ghetto, he plays, I think the barber is unnamed, but he also plays Hinkel, who is the dictator ruler of Tomania, which is fictional Germany in this sense. He plays as both a Jew impacted by the acts of Nazi Germany, as well as the very ruler. Yes, Jax, that's exactly right. I heard someone say that heroes and villains have the same backstory. It's how they respond to it that's important. That is exactly right. Now, they may have come from, different backgrounds, different places, and yet to be such a folly of each other is so interesting. And to have that dichotomy. So in the story, eventually, Charlie Chaplin. Oh, thank you for the follow. Thank you for joining the lads. In the story, the Jewish barber ends up getting mistaken for Hinkel, who is the dictator of Tamania, Germany. And it coalesces into this point where the barber ends up dressed up as Hinkel, and he goes before his people and gives a speech. And the speech itself was written over rewrite after rewrite after redraft after redraft by Chaplin himself. And it ends up being just a call for peace and for understanding, of uplifting each other. And it's such a powerful message that it's why it's one of my favorites. I remember the first time I heard it, I was moved. I ended up crying after. Such a powerful message that even to this day rings so true. So with that, we actually finished the poems that we were going to read today. Like I said, there was one that I wanted to read, but in the interest of time, we're going to go ahead and move forward. And we're going to read a short story now. There's two that I would like to do today, for sure. I'm going to do one before the other. It is The Telltale Heart by Edgar Allan Poe. Now, this was actually requested by Dr. Plague. I don't know if let's see if he's in here. Doesn't happen to be in here right now, but I wanted to go ahead and still give that shout out, Dr. Plague himself. I hope, if you see this on the VOD or whatever have you, I hope you get to hear this, and I get to hear you. I hope you get to hear me read this story, which is a weird thing to say. So here we are, Telltale Heart. Found the page. Here it is. The Telltale Heart by Edgar Allan Poe. True, nervous, very, very dreadfully nervous I had been and am. But why will you say that I am mad? The disease that sharpened my senses, not destroyed, not dulled them. Above all was the sense of hearing acute. I heard all things in heaven and in earth. I heard many things in hell. How then am I mad? Hearken, and observe how healthily, how calmly I can tell you the whole story. It is impossible to say how first the idea entered my brain, but once conceived, it haunted me day and night. Object there was none. Passion there was none. I loved the old man. He had never wronged me. He had never given me insult. For his gold I had no desire. I think it was his eye. Yes, it was this. One of his eyes resembled that of a vulture, a pale blue eye with a film over it. Whenever it fell upon me, my blood ran cold, and so by degrees, very gradually, I made up my mind to take the life of the old man, and thus rid myself of the eye forever. Now this is the point. You fancy me mad. Madmen know nothing. You should have seen me. You should have seen how wisely I proceeded, with what caution, with what foresight, with what dissimulation I went to work. I was never kinder to the old man than during the whole week before I killed him. And every night about midnight, I turned the latch of his door and opened it. Oh, so gently. And then, when I had made an opening sufficient for my head, I put in a dark lantern, all closed, so that no light shone out, and then I thrust in my head. Oh, you would have laughed to see how cunningly I thrust it in. I moved it slowly, very, very slowly. Beans. We have an ad break coming in. I have my place. I will wait here patiently for your return, so we can continue The Telltale Heart by Edgar Allan Poe. He has such a way of showing madness. Oh, but of course, the person's not mad. They said so, right? But to be able to really show it in a way where it's obvious, It's obvious this guy's crazy. But to go through the effort of being like, no, I'm not crazy, and here's why I'm not crazy, and I'll show you why I'm not crazy. It's very fun, very fascinating. Alrighty, so ads are starting soon. I will see you guys momentarily. Oh, my face is on weird. No, we're good. Ooh, I'm really hungry. Kind of want to get something to eat. Excuse me while I send out a transmission. Actually, this is a perfect time for me to just be right back. Alrighty. Excuse me. Had a little snack. Now, we return to The Telltale Heart by Edgar Allan Poe. Oh, you would have laughed to see how cunningly I thrust it in. I moved it slowly, very, very slowly, so that I might not disturb the old man's sleep. It took me an hour to place my whole head within the opening so far that I could see him as he lay upon his bed. Ha! Would a madman have been so wise as this? And then when my head was well in the room, I undid the lantern cautiously, oh so cautiously, cautiously, for the hinges creaked. I undid it just so much that a single thin ray fell upon the vulture eye. And this I did for 7 long nights, every night just at midnight, but I found the eye always closed, and so it was impossible to do the work, for it was not that the old man who vexed me, but his evil eye. And every morning when the day broke, I went boldly into the chamber and spoke courageously to him, calling him by name in a hearty tone, and inquiring how he had passed the night. So you see, he would have been a very profound old man indeed to suspect that every night, just at 12, I looked in upon him while he slept. Upon the 8th night, I was more than usually cautious in opening the door. A watch's minute hand moves more quickly than did mine. Never before that night had I felt the extent of my own powers, of my sagacity. I could scarcely contain my feelings of triumph. To think that there I was, opening the door little by little, and he not even to dream of my secret deeds or thoughts. I fairly chuckled at the idea, and perhaps he heard me, for he moved on the bed suddenly as if startled. Now, you may think that I drew back, but no. His room was as black as pitch with the thick darkness, for the shutters were close fastened through fear of robbers, and so I knew that he could not see the opening of the door. And I kept pushing it on steadily, steadily. I had my head in, and was about to open the lantern when my thumb slipped upon the tin fastening, and the old man sprang up in bed, crying out, "Who's there?" I kept quite still and said nothing. For a whole hour I did not move a muscle, and in the meantime I did not hear him lie down. He was still sitting up in bed, listening, just as I had done, night after night, hearkening to the death that watches in the wall. Presently I heard a slight groan, and I knew it was the groan of mortal terror. It was not a groan of pain or grief. Oh no! It was the low, stifled sound that arises from the bottom of the soul when overcharged with awe. I knew the sound well. Many a night, just at midnight, when all the world slept, it was welled up from my own bosom, deepening with this dreadful echo the terrors that distracted me. I knew it well. I knew what the old man felt and pitied him, although I chuckled at heart. I knew that he had been lying awake. Oh, hey, Pix! I knew that he had been lying awake. I lost my spot. From my own bosom, I say it, I knew it well. I knew that I chuckled at heart. I knew he had been lying awake ever since the first slight noise, when he had turned in the bed. His fears had been ever since growing upon him. He had been trying to fancy them clueless. You are a great person. Oh, what? I'm just reading. Oh, we turned to bed. His fears had been ever since growing upon him. He had been trying to fancy them costless, but could not. He had been saying to himself, "It is nothing but the wind in the chimney. It is only a mouse crossing the floor. Or, it is merely a cricket which was made such a single chirp." Yes, he has been trying to comfort himself with these suppositions, but he had found all in vain. All in vain. Because death, in approaching him, had stalked with his black shadow before him and enveloped the victim. And it was the mournful influence of the unperceived shadow that caused him to feel, although he neither saw nor heard, to feel the presence of my head within the room. When I had waited a long time, very patiently, without hearing him lie down, I resolved to open a very, very little crevice in the lantern, so I opened it. You cannot imagine how stealthily, until at length a single dim ray like the thread of the spider shot from out the crevice and fell upon the vulture eye. It was open wide open, and I grew furious as I gazed upon it. I saw it with perfect distinctness, all a dull blue, with a hideous veil over it that chilled the very marrow in my bones. But I could see nothing else of the old man's face or person, for I had directed the ray, as if by instinct, precisely upon the damned spot. And now have I not told you that what you mistake for madness is over-acuteness of the senses? Now, I say, there came to my ears a low, dull, quick sound, such as a watch makes when enveloped in cotton. I knew that sound well, too. It was the beating of the old man's heart. It increased my fury as the beating of a drum stimulates the soldier into courage. But even yet I refrained and kept still. I scarcely breathed. I held the lantern motionless. I tried how steadily I could maintain the ray upon the eye. Meantime, the hellish tattoo of the heart increased. It grew quicker and quicker and louder every instant. The old man's terror must have been extreme. It grew louder, I say, louder every moment. Do you mark me well? I have told you that I am nervous, so I am. And now at the dead hour of the night, amid the dreadful silence of that house, so strange a noise as this excited me to uncontrollable terror. Yet for some minutes longer I refrained and stood still. But the beating grew louder and louder. I thought the heart must burst, and now a new anxiety seized me. The sound would be heard by a neighbor. The old man's hour had come. With a loud yell, I threw open the lantern and leaped into the room. He shrieked once only. In an instant, I dragged him to the floor and pulled the heavy bed over him. I then smiled gaily to find the deed so far done. But for many minutes, the heart beat on with a muffled sound. This, however, did not vex me. It would not be heard through the wall. At length it ceased. The old man was dead. I removed the bed and examined the corpse. Yes, he was stone dead. I placed my hand upon the heart and held it there many minutes. There was no pulsation. He was stone dead. His eye would trouble me no more. If you still think me mad, you will think so no longer when I describe the wise precautions I took for the concealment of the body. The night waned and I worked hastily, but in silence. First of all, I dismembered the corpse. I cut off the head and the arms and the legs. I then took up 3 planks from the flooring of the chamber and deposited it all between the scantlings. I then replaced the boards so cleverly, so cunningly, that no human eye, not even his, could have detected anything wrong. There was nothing to wash out, no stain of any kind, no blood spot whatever. I had been too wary of that. A tub had caught all. When I made an end of these labors, it was 4 o'clock, still dark as midnight. As the bell sounded the hour, there came a knocking at the street door. I went down to open it with a light heart, for what had I now to fear? There entered 3 men, who introduced themselves with perfect suavity as officers of the police. A shriek had been heard by a neighbor during the night. Suspicion of foul play had been aroused. Information had been lodged at the police office, and they, the officers, had been deputed to search the premises. I smiled. For what had I to fear? I bade the gentleman welcome. The shriek, I said, was my own in a dream. The old man, I mentioned, was absent in the country. I took my visitors all over the house. I bade them search well. I led them at length to his chamber. I showed them his treasures, secure, undisturbed, in the enthusiasm of my confidence. I brought chairs into the room, and desired them here to rest from their fatigues, while I myself, in the wild audacity of my perfect triumph, placed my own seat upon the very spot beneath which reposed the corpse of the victim. The officers were satisfied. My manner had convinced them. I was singularly at ease. They sat, and while I answered cheerily, they chattered of familiar things. But ere long I felt myself getting pale and wished them gone. My head ached, and I fancied a ringing in my ears. But still they sat and still chatted. The ringing became more distinct. It continued and became more distinct. I talked more freely to get rid of the feeling, but it continued and gained definiteness. Until, at length, I found that the noise was not within my ears. No doubt, I now grew very pale. But I talked more fluently and with a heightened voice. Yet the sound increased, and what could I do? It was a low, dull, quick sound. Much such a sound as a watch makes when enveloped in cotton. I gasped for breath, and yet the officers heard it not. I talked more quickly, more vehemently, but the noise steadily increased. I arose, argued about trifles in a high key and with violent gesticulations, but the noise steadily increased. Why would they not be gone? I paced the floor to and fro with heavy strides as if excited to fury by the observations of men, but the noise steadily increased. Oh God, what could I do? I foamed, I raved, I swore, I swung the chair upon which I had been seated, and grated it upon the boards, but the noise arose over all and continually increased. It grew louder, 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 and still the men chatted pleasantly and smiled. Was it possible they heard it not? Almighty God, no. No, they heard, they suspected, they knew. They were making a mockery of my horror. This I thought, and this I think, but anything was better than this agony. Anything was more terrible than this derision. I could bear those hypocritical smiles no longer. I felt that I must scream or die, and now again, hark, louder, 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 louder. Villains, I shrieked, dissemble no more. I admit the deed, tear up the planks. Here, here, it is a beating of the hideous heart. And that was The Telltale Heart by Edgar Allan Poe. The descent into madness while still mad is a very interesting topic. You hear something that's not there, but it must be, right? Because you hear it. It's right next to you. It's under you. And the shift of confidence to lack of is so palpable. It progresses throughout most of the narrative. At the beginning, being ever so confident in the fact that I'm going to get away with this. But you can still hear the heart. Now, was the heart still beating? Or was it guilt? Obviously, it's very likely that it was guilt. And guilt can make one more mad than the madness you started it off with. Gosh. Drink a little bit more water. So, the next short story, I have two that I'm thinking of doing. There's one that I would like to personally do, which is what I probably will do. But I also want to hear your guys's. Actually, before that, I wanted to give some more shout-outs. Not in the case of having any particular, poem read or anything like that. But I wanted to give another shout-out to Noxus Rose, Vampiric Bistro, Lone, Angel Hero, and QB. You guys have all had an impact on me a great impact on me, in fact, to an extent that I will be forever grateful to be able to game with you guys, just talk and chat on Discord, either verbally or through text, has been so special to me in every way that I can think of it being special. And obviously, you know, we're oomfies, we're online only mutual friends. Maybe not with Nox, considering how close we live. I'm not going to say where. But I have valued, and will continue to value all of your guys' support and friendship. And I hope you guys all know how important you guys are now to me. I mean, I wouldn't affiliate without you guys, really. I wouldn't be doing this fun little thing without you guys. So genuinely, just thank you guys so much for all your help. Everybody else who's here as well, thank you all so much. Yeah, and likewise, you know, I'm sure there's other people who aren't currently here who pass through, and I thank them as well. Cybane, I thank you. Aki, Opai. Gosh, there's so many people to say. So many people have had such a positive impact on me. And I also want to give a shout out to my friend Spaz, who is one of my IRL friends. They actually worked with me at GameStop for a good amount of time. Hi Haley. I hope you don't mind me using your real name. If you do, we'll cut that out. It's fine. But we need to catch up. Spaz, you and I, we need to play Minecraft. Maybe we can play some after this. We'll see. Or later this week. We'll make time. We'll make time. Now, the next story I'm going to be reading, I think I have enough time for 2. Yeah. We're going to do 2 more, and that'll be it. Thank everybody for coming through, for humoring me, for listening, and for being there. So we have 2 we're going to read. I'm going to read The Outsider first by H.P. Lovecraft. It begins with a poem by another one of my favorite poets, Keats. That night the Baron dreamt of many a woe, and all his warrior guests, with shaden form of witch and demon and large coffin worm, were long benightmared. Unhappy is he to whom the memories of childhood bring only fear and sadness. Wretched is he who looks back upon lone hours in a vast and dismal chambers with brown hangings and maddening rows of antique books, or upon odd watches in twilight groves of grotesque, gigantic, and vine-encumbered trees that silently wave twisted branches far aloft. Such a lot the gods gave to me, the dazed, the disappointed, the barren, the broken, and yet I am strangely content, and cling desperately to those sere memories, when my mind momentarily threatens to reach beyond to the other. I know not where I was born, save that the castle was infinitely old and infinitely horrible, full of dark passages and having high ceilings where the eye could find only cobwebs and shadows. The stones in the crumbling corridors seemed always hideously damp, and there was an accursed smell everywhere, as of the piled up corpses of dead generations. It was never light, so that I used sometimes to light candles and gaze steadily at them for relief. Nor was there any sun outdoors, since the terrible trees grew high above the topmost accessible tower. There was one black tower which reached above the trees in the unknown outer sky, but that was partly ruined and could not be ascended save by a well nigh impossible climb up the sheer wall, stone by stone. I must have lived years in this place, but I cannot measure the time. Beings must have cared for my needs, yet I cannot recall any person except myself. Or anything alive but the noiseless rats and bats and spiders. I think that whoever nursed me must have been shockingly aged, since my first conception of a living person was that of something mockingly like myself, yet distorted, shriveled, and decaying like the castle. To me, there was nothing grotesque in the bones and the skeletons that strode some of the stone crypts deep down among the foundations. I fantastically associated these things with everyday events, and thought them more natural than the colored pictures of living beings which I found in many of the moldy books. From such books, I learned all that I know. No teacher urged or guided me, and I do not recall hearing any human voice in all those years, not even my own. For although I have read of speech, I had never thought to try and speak aloud. My aspect was a matter equally unthought of, for there were no mirrors in the castle, and I merely regarded myself by instinct as akin to the youthful figures I saw drawn and painted in the books. I felt conscious of youth because I remembered so little. Outside, across the putrid moat and under the dark mute trees, I would often lie and dream for hours about what I read in the books, and would longingly picture myself amidst great crowds in the sunny world beyond the endless forest. Once, I tried to escape from the forest, but as I went farther from the castle, the shade grew denser and the air more filled with brooding fear, so that I ran frantically back lest I lose my way in a labyrinth of nighted silence. So through endless twilights I dreamed and waited, though I knew not what I waited for. Then, in the shadowy solitude, my longing for light grew so frantic that I could rest no more, and I lifted entreating hands to the single black ruined tower that reached above the forest into the unknown outer sky. And at last I resolved to scale that tower, fall though I might, since it were better to glimpse the sky and perish than to live without ever beholding day. In the dank twilight I climbed the worn and aged stone stairs till I reached the level where they ceased, and thereafter clung perilously to small footholds leading upward. Ghastly and terrible was that dead, stairless cylinder of rock, black, ruined, and deserted, and sinister with startled bats whose wings made no noise. But more ghastly and terrible still was the slowness of my progress, for climb as I might, the darkness overhead grew no thinner, and a new chill as of haunted and venerable mold assailed me. I shivered as I wondered why I did not reach the light, and would have looked down had I dared. I fancied that night had come suddenly upon me, and vainly groped with one free hand for a window embrasure, that I might peer out and above and try to judge the height I had attained. All at once, after an infinity of awesome, sightless crawling up that concave and desperate precipice, I felt my head touch a solid thing, and I knew I must have gained the roof, or at least some kind of floor. In the darkness I raised my free hand and tested the barrier, finding it stone and unmovable. Then came a deadly circuit of the tower, clinging to whatever holds the slimy wall could give, till finally my testing hand found the barrier yielding, and I turned upward again, pushing the slab or door with my head as I used both hands in my fearful ascent. There was no light revealed above, and as my hands went higher I knew that my climb was for the nonce ended, since the slab was the trap door of an aperture leading to a level stone surface of greater circumference than the lower tower. No doubt the floor of some lofty and capacious observation chamber, I crawled through carefully and tried to prevent the heavy slab from falling back into place, but failed in the latter attempt, and tried to prevent the heavy slab from falling back into place. As I lay exhausted on the stone floor, I heard the eerie echoes of its fall, but hoped when necessary to pry it open again. Alrighty, an ad break's starting soon, so I'm going to go ahead and pause there. So far, so interesting. We follow our narrator through what he believed was a tower, an endless sky that was covered by trees. But he climbed through, and now there's a trapdoor. Wonder what that means. I hope me eating my snacks isn't coming through. Hopefully not, anyway. I need to finish setting up that Discord. You know, I think that would be fun. It's very bare bones right now, but once I have a little bit more health putting it together, it's gonna be cool. It's gonna be fun. Oh, there he goes. It's just you and me now, Gemini. You like seaweed snacks? I certainly do. Not much left in this one. We're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 paragraphs in of quite a bit, actually. Sorry, guys, I was just finishing up my seaweed snacks. Yes, QB, I will definitely have some free time this week. I hope you do too. And we can go over finalizing the details of the Discord. Yeah. Alrighty. Back to the outsider. Believing I was now at a prodigious height, far above the accursed branches of the wood, I dragged myself up from the floor and fumbled about for windows, that I might look for the first time upon the sky, and the moon and stars of which I had read. But on every hand I was disappointed, since all that I found were vast shells of marble, bearing odious oblong boxes of disturbing size. More and more I reflected and wondered what hoary secrets might abide in this high apartment so many eons cut off from the castle below. Then, unexpectedly, my hands came up upon a doorway, where hung a portal of stone rough with strange chiseling. Trying it, I found it locked, but with a supreme burst of strength I overcame all obstacles and dragged it open inward. As I did so, there came to me the purest ecstasy I've ever known. For shining tranquility through an ornate grating of iron and down a short stone passageway of steps that ascended from the newly found doorway was the radiant full moon, which I had never before seen, save in dreams and in vague visions I dare not call memories. Fancying now that I had attained the very pinnacle of the castle, I commenced to rush up the few steps beyond the door. But the sudden veiling of the moon by a cloud caused me to stumble, and I felt my way more slowly in the dark. It was still very dark when I reached the grating, which I tried carefully and found unlocked, but which I did not open for fear of falling from the amazing height to which I had climbed. Then the moon came out. Most demoniacal of all shocks is that of the abysmally unexpected and grotesquely unbelievable. Nothing I had before undergone could compare in terror with what I now saw, with the bizarre marvels that sight implied. The sight itself was as simple as it was stupefying, for it was merely this. Instead of a dizzying prospect of treetops seen from a lofty eminence, there stretched around me on a level through the grating nothing less than the solid ground. Decked and diversified by marble slabs and columns, and overshadowed by an ancient stone church whose ruined spire gleamed spectrally in the moonlight. Half unconscious, I opened the grating and staggered out upon the white gravel path that stretched away in two directions. My mind, stunned and chaotic as it was, still held the frantic craving for light, and not even the fantastic wonder which had been happened could stay my course. I neither knew nor cared whether my experience was insanity, dreaming, or magic, but was determined to gaze on brilliance and gaiety at any cost. I knew not who I was, or what my surroundings might be, though, as I continued to stumble along, I became conscious of a kind of fearsome latent memory that made my progress not wholly fortuitous. I passed under an arch out of that region of slabs and columns and wandered through the open country, sometimes following the visible road, but sometimes leaving it curiously to tread across meadows where only occasional ruins bespoke the ancient presence of a forgotten road. Once, I swam across a swift river where crumbling mossy masonry told of a bridge long vanished. Over 2 hours must have passed before I reached what seemed to be my goal, a venerable ivied castle in a thickly wooded park. Maddeningly familiar, yet full of perplexing strangeness to me. I saw that the moat was filled in, and that some of the well-known towers were demolished, whilst new wings existed to confuse the beholder. But what I observed with chief interest and delight were the open windows, gorgeously ablaze with light and sending forth sound of the gayest revelry. Advancing to one of those, I looked in and saw an oddly dressed company indeed, making merry and speaking brightly to one another. I had never, seemingly, heard human speech before, and could guess only vaguely what was said. Some of the faces seemed to hold expressions that brought up incredibly remote recollections. Others were utterly alien. I now stepped through the low window into the brilliantly lighted room, stepping as I did so from my single bright moment of hope, my blackest convulsion of despair and realization. The nightmare was quick to come, for as I entered, there occurred immediately one of the most terrifying demonstrations I had ever conceived. Scarcely had I crossed the sill when there descended upon the whole company a sudden and unheralded fear of hideous intensity, distorting every face and evoking the most horrible screams from nearly every throat. Flight was universal, and in the clamor and panic several fell in a swoon and were dragged away by their madly fleeing companions. Many covered their eyes with their hands and plunged blindly and awkwardly in their race to escape, overturning furniture and stumbling against the walls before they managed to reach one of the many doors. The cries were shocking, and as I stood in the brilliant apartment alone and dazed, listening to their vanishing echoes, I trembled at the thought of what might be lurking near me unseen. A casual inspection of the room seemed deserted, but when I moved toward one of the alcoves, I thought I detected a presence there. A hint of motion beyond the golden arched doorway leading to another and somewhat similar room. As I approached the arch, I began to perceive the presence more clearly, and then, with the first and last sound I ever uttered, a ghastly ululation that revolted me almost as poignantly as its noxious cause, I beheld in full frightful vividness the inconceivable, indescribable, and unmentionable monstrosity which had by its simple appearance changed a merry company to a herd of dareless fugitives. I cannot even hint what it was like, for it was a compound of all that is unclean, uncanny, unwelcome, abnormal, and detestable. It was the ghoulish shade of decay, antiquity, and desolation. The putrid dripping eidolon of unwholesome revelation, the awful barring of that which the merciful earth should always hide. God knows it was not of this world, or no longer of this world, yet to my horror, I saw in its eaten away and bone-revealing outlines a leering, abhorrent travesty on the human shape, and its moldy, disintegrating apparel an unspeakable quality that chilled me even more. I was almost paralyzed, but not too much so to make a feeble effort toward flight. A backward stumbled which failed to break the Classy Hammett stayed. Oh, thank you, Classy. Oh my gosh, hi. You caught me towards the end of The Outsider by H.P. Lovecraft. I was almost paralyzed, but not too much so to make a feeble effort toward flight. A backward stumble which failed to break the spell in which the nameless, voiceless monster held me. My eyes, bewitched by the glassy orbs which stared loathsomely into them, refused to close, though they were mercifully blurred, and shewed the terrible object but indistinctly after the first shock. I tried to raise my hand to shut out the sight, yet so stunned were my nerves that my arm could not fully obey my will. The attempt, however, was enough to disturb my balance so that I had to stagger forward several steps to avoid falling. As I did so, I became suddenly and agonizingly aware of the nearness of the carrion thing, whose hideous hollow breathing I half fancied I could hear. Nearly mad, I found myself yet able to throw out a hand to ward off the foetid apparition which pressed so close, when in one cataclysmic second of cosmic nightmarishness and hellish accident, my fingers touched the rotting outstretched paw of the monster beneath the golden arch. I did not shriek, but all the fiendish ghouls that ride the night wind shrieked for me, as in that same second there crashed down upon my mind a single and fleeting avalanche of soul-annihilating memory. I knew in that second all that had been. I remembered beyond the frightful castle in the trees, and recognized the altered edifice in which I now stood. I recognized most terrible of all the unholy abomination that stood leering before me as I withdrew my sullied fingers from its own. But in the cosmos there is balm as well as bitterness, and that balm is Nepenthe. In the supreme horror of that second, I forgot what had horrified me, and the burst of black memory vanished in a chaos of echoing images. In a dream I fled from that haunted and accursed pile and ran swiftly and silently in the moonlight. When I returned to the churchyard place of marble and went down the steps, I found the stone trapdoor immovable. But I was not sorry, for I had hated the antique castle and the trees. Now I ride with the mocking and friendly ghouls on the night wind, and play by day amongst the catacombs of Nefren Ka in the sealed and unknown valley of Hadath by the Nile. I know that light is not for me, save that of the moon of the rock tombs of Neb, nor any gaiety save the unnamed feasts of Nitocris beneath the Great Pyramid. Yet, in my new wilderness and freedom, I almost welcomed the bitterness of alienage. For although Nepenthe has calmed me, I know always that I am an outsider, a stranger in the century and among those who are still men. This I have known, ever since I stretched out my fingers to the abomination within that great gilded frame. Stretched out my fingers and touched a cold and unyielding surface of polished glass. How is it that when you find the monster, you find out that the monster is you? To have lost your memory, only for it to return in the most anguished of ways. speaking of anguish, we're going to move to our last story of the night. One that I'm sure most of you have either heard of or have heard reference of, or maybe even read yourself. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Classy Ham, for joining the lads. I appreciate you. So, because I'm tired and my voice is giving out, we're going to read this and be done for the night. Or evening. We are going to be reading I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream by Harlan Ellison. Limp, the body of the Gorrister hung from the pink pallet, unsupported, hanging high above us in the computer chamber. And it did not shiver in the chill, oily breeze that blew eternally through the main cavern. The body hung head down, attached to the underside of the pallet by the sole of its right foot. It had been drained of blood through a precise incision made from ear to ear under the lantern jaw. There was no blood on the reflective surface of the metal floor. When Gorrister joined our group and looked up at himself, it was already too late for us to realize that, once again, Am had duped us. Had had its fun. It had been a diversion on the part of the machine. 3 of us had vomited, turning away from one another in a reflex as ancient as the nausea that had produced it. Gorrister went white. It was almost as though he had seen a voodoo icon and was afraid of the future. "Oh God," he mumbled and walked away. The 3 of us followed him after a time and found him sitting with his back to one of the smaller chittering banks, his head in his hands. Ellen knelt down beside him and stroked his hair. He didn't move, but his voice came out of his covered face quite clearly. "Why doesn't it just do us in and get it over with? Christ, I don't know how much longer I can go on like this." It was our 109th year in the computer. He was speaking for us all. For all of us. Nimdoc, which was the name of the machine had forced him to use, because Am amused itself with strange sounds, was hallucinating that there were canned goods in the ice caverns. Gorrister and I were very dubious. "It's another shuck," I told them, "like the goddamn frozen elephant Am sold us. Benny almost went out of his mind over that one. We'll hike all that way and it'll be putrefied or some damn thing. I say forget it. Stay here. It'll have to come up with something pretty soon or we'll die." Benny shrugged. 3 days it had been since we had last eaten. Worms. Thick. Ropey. Nimdoc was no more certain. He knew there was a chance, but he was getting thin. It couldn't be any worse there than here. Colder, but that didn't matter much. Hot, cold, hail, lava, boils, or locusts. It never mattered. The machine masturbated and we had to take it or die. Ellen decided us. "I've got to have something, Ted. Maybe there'll be some Bartlett pears or peaches. Please, Ted, let's try it." I gave in easily. What the hell? It mattered not at all. Ellen was grateful, though. She took me twice out of turn. Even that had ceased to matter. And she never came, so why bother? But the machine giggled every time we did it. Loud, up there, back there, all around us, he snickered. It snickered. Most of the time I thought of Am as it, without a soul. But the rest of the time I thought of it as him, in the masculine, the paternal, the patriarchal. For he is a jealous people. Him, it, God is Daddy the Deranged. We left on a Thursday. The machine always kept us up to date on the date. The passage of time was important, not to us, sure as hell, but to him. It. Am. Thursday. Thanks. Nimdoc and Gorrister carried Ellen for a while, their hands locked to their own and each other's wrists, a seat. Benny and I walked before and after, just to make sure that if anything happened, it would catch one of us and at least Ellen would be safe. Fat chance safe. Didn't matter. It was only 100 miles or so to the ice caverns, and the second day, when we were lying out under the blistering sun thing he had materialized, he sent down some mana. Tastes like boiled boar urine. We ate it. On the third day, we passed through a valley of obsolescence, filled with rusting carcasses of ancient computer banks. Am had been ruthless with its own life as with ours. It was a mark of his personality. It strove for perfection, whether it was a matter of killing off unproductive elements in his own world-filling bulk, or perfecting methods for torturing us. Am was thorough as those who had invented him, now long since gone to dust, could have ever hoped. There was light filtering down from above, and we realized we must be very near the surface. But we didn't try to crawl up to see. There was virtually nothing out there. Had been nothing that could be considered anything for over 100 years. Only the blasted skin. Lost my spit. Hold on. Whether it was a matter of killing off and virtually nothing. Only the blasted skin of what had once been the home of billions. Now there were only 5 of us. Down here inside, alone with Am. I heard Ellen saying frantically, "No, Benny, don't, come on, Benny, don't, please." And then I realized I had been hearing Benny murmuring under his breath for several minutes. He was saying, "I'm gonna get out. I'm gonna get out." Over and over. His monkey-like face was crumpled up in an expression of beatific delight and sadness all at the same time. The radiation scars Am had given him during the festival were drawn down into a mass of pink-white puckerings, and his features seemed to work independently of one another. Perhaps Benny was the luckiest of the 5 of us. He had gone stark, staring mad many years before. But even though we could call Am any damned thing we liked, could think the foulest thoughts of fused memory banks and corroded base plates, of burnt-out circuits and shattered control bulbs, the machine would not tolerate our trying to escape. Benny leaped away from me as I made a grab for him. He scrambled up the face of a smaller memory cube tilted on its side and filled with rotted components. He squatted there for a minute, looking like a chimpanzee Am had intended him to resemble. Then he leaped high, caught a trailing beam of pitted and corroded metal, and went up it, hand over hand like an animal, till he was on a girdered ledge 20 feet above us. "Oh, Ted, Nimdok, please help him. Get him down before—" She cut off. Tears began to stand in her eyes. She moved her hands aimlessly. It was too late. None of us wanted to be near him when whatever was going to happen happened. And besides, we all saw through her concern. When Am had altered Benny during the machine's utterly irrational hysterical phase, it was not merely Benny's face that the computer had made like a giant ape's. He was big in the privates. She loved that. She serviced as a matter of course, but she loved it from him. Oh, Ellen. Pedestal Ellen. Pristine, pure Ellen. Oh, Ellen the clean. Scum filth. Gorster slapped her. She slumped down, staring up at poor loony Benny, and she cried. It was a big defense, crying. We'd gotten used to it 75 years earlier. Gorster kicked her in the side. Then the sound began. It was light, that sound. Half sound and half light. Something that began to glow from Benny's eyes and pulse with growing loudness. Dim sonorities that grew more gigantic and brighter as the light sound increased in tempo. It must have been painful, and the pain must have been increasing with the boldness of the light, the rising volume of the sound, for Benny began to mewl like a wounded animal. At first softly when the light was dim and the sound was muted, then louder as his shoulders hunched together, his back humped, as though he was trying to get away from it. His hands folded across his chest like a chipmunk's, his head tilted to the side. The sad little monkey face pinched in anguish. Then he began to howl. As the sound coming from his eyes grew louder, louder and louder. I slapped the sides of my head with my hands, but I couldn't shut it out. It cut through easily. The pain shivered through my flesh like tinfoil on tooth. And Benny was suddenly pulled erect. On the girder he stood up, jerked to his feet like a puppet. The light was now pulsing out of his eyes in 2 great round beams. The sound crawled up and up some incomprehensible scale, and then he fell down, straight down, and hit the plate steel floor with a crash. He lay there jerking spastically as the light flowed around him, and the sound spiraled up out of normal range. Then the light beat its way back inside his head. The sound spiraled down, and he was left lying there, crying piteously. Then the light beat its way back piteously. His eyes were two soft, moist pools of pus-like jelly. Am had blinded him. Gorrister and Nimdok and myself, we turned away. But not before we caught the look of relief on Ellen's warmed, concerned face. Sea green light suffused the cavern where we made camp. Provided punk and we burned it. Am provided punk and we burned it, sitting huddled around the wan and the pathetic fire, telling stories to keep Benny from crying in his permanent night. What does Am mean? Gorrister answered him. We had done this sequence 1,000 times before, but it was Benny's favorite story. At first it meant Allied Master Computer, and then it meant Adaptive Manipulator, and later on it developed sentience and licked itself up and they called it an aggressive menace. But by then it was too late, and finally it called itself Am, Emerging Intelligence, and what it meant was I am, cogito ergo sum, I think, therefore I am. Benny drooled a little and snickered. There was the Chinese Am and the Russian Am and the Yankee Am, and he stopped. Benny was beating on the floor plates with a large hard fist. He was not happy. Gorrister had to start at the beginning. Gorrister began again. The Cold War started and became World War III and just kept going. It became a big war, a very complex war. So they needed the computers to handle it. They sank the first shafts and began building Am. There was the Chinese Am and the Russian Am and the Yankee Am, and everything was fine until they had honeycombed the entire planet, adding on this element and that element. But one day Am woke up and knew who he was, and he linked himself and he began feeding all the killing data until everyone was dead, except for the 5 of us. And Am brought us down here. Benny was smiling sadly. He was drooling again. Ellen wiped the spittle from the corner of his mouth with the hem of her skirt. Gorrister always tried to tell it a little more succinctly each time, but beyond the bare facts there was nothing to say. None of us knew why Am had saved 5 people, or why our specific 5, or why he spent all this time tormenting us, or even why he made us all virtually immortal. In the darkness, one of the computer banks began humming. The tone was picked up a half a mile away down the cavern by another bank. Then one by one, each of the elements began to tune itself, and there was a faint chittering as thought raced through the machine. The sound grew and the lights ran across the face of the consoles like heat lightning. The sound spiraled up till it sounded like 1,000,000 metallic insects, angry, menacing. "What is it?" Ellen cried. There was terror in her voice. She hadn't become accustomed to it, even now. "It's going to be bad this time," Nimdok said. "He's going to speak," Gorrister said. "I know it." "Let's get the hell out of here," I said, suddenly getting to my feet. "No, Ted, sit down. What if he's got pits out there or something else? We can't see. It's too dark." Gorrister said it with resignation. Then we heard, I don't know, something moving toward us in the darkness. Huge, shambling, hairy, moist. It came toward us. We couldn't even see it, but there was this ponderous impression of bulk heaving itself toward us. Great weight was coming at us out of the darkness, and it was more a sense of pressure, of air forcing itself into a limited space, expanding the invisible walls of a sphere. Benny began to whimper. Nimdok's lower lip trembled and he bit it hard, trying to stop it. Ellen slid across the metal floor to Gorrister and huddled into him. There was the smell of matted wet fur in the cavern. There was the smell of charred wood. There was the smell of dusty velvet. There was the smell of rotting orchids. There was the smell of sour milk. There was the smell of sulfur, of rancid butter, of oil slick, of grease, of chalk dust, of human scalps. Am was keying us. He was tickling us. There was the smell of... We're gonna pause it there. We have an ad coming up. Golly. Ugh. It's been a while since I've talked this long. Jesus. I can feel it. We're almost there. We're on page 5 of 11. I really like this one. I like science fiction a lot. Especially for the time that this one was written. A lot of the stuff was pretty, like, new age at the time. So it's very interesting seeing somebody who very much, like, may not have known what science fiction was and be like, I'm gonna do it. It's very interesting. I'm gonna go ahead and hit the be right back and go and get a little water because my throat is quite parched. I'll see you guys in a second. Hello, everyone. Ready. So, time has passed me a little bit, and I regret to say that we're going to have to go ahead and end it here.
Wait, make sure everybody's here. I think that should be done. Yeah, so we're going to go ahead and end it here for now. Maybe we'll catch back up. Fortunately, can't finish the book, but that's okay. It happens. So, again, thanks everybody here for coming down. Thanks for everybody who has supported me, helping me get to affiliate. And I hope everybody has a good rest of their night. If I don't see you, just know that I'm thinking of you. Goodbye.